Hello. Nice to see you, nice. Yeah, so if you're trying to watch in Zoom, But it was going on and off. You think that that's it back on now? Okay. Thank you. Hello. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, maybe you can try and warn me if it goes off again, because it looks like it's a little unreliable. I have a feeling it's something to do with Zoom. Like Zoom kept giving me faulty something about audio, and I was connecting the audio to Zoom. So it might be that I can't use Zoom today. Okay, let's begin. I suspect that you totally missed all the advertisement that I did. It takes all my brain power to remember the advertisement. The lady that helps me, her name, well, I don't know if I should say her name on the internet, but beautiful lady that helps me is always reminding me to advertise, and then I forget. And then I go to do it and the audio goes. I'll do it again at the end if I remember. Yeah, nice. Okay, so let's look at the title, The Dream of You. Yes, the dream of you. There's so many comments about sound. Okay, so the dream of you. So let's begin the talk. Okay. The dream of you. So all there is this moment. Just this moment happening, nothing more. Isn't that amazing? And you know, I've said this like thousands and thousands of times seemingly on all these YouTube videos. But isn't it truly and utterly amazing that all there is this moment and everything else is thought? Everything else is thought. Let me just go on to the other thing just to make sure my audio is working. Yeah. So it is thought that you're listening to a talk. Isn't that something? It is thought that you are listening to a talk. So you're not actually listening to a talk. You're dreaming that you're listening to a talk. Isn't that crazy? So it's like a nighttime dream that's appearing of you, of this imagination of you listening to a talk. What's actually happening now is just what's happening now. Which is way beyond the idea that you are listening to a talk. That's your imagination of what's happening. What's happening now is simply this, which is undescribable. There is words happening, there is breeze happening, there is energy happening, there is this happening. Nothing more. Just this happening. So it's imagination that you walked into this room, that you chose to listen to this talk, that you are doing anything. You are an imagination. Everything that you imagine about yourself, everything is a dream. Your childhood, your partner, your children, anything. Even if your children are here, it's still an imagination that they are your children, that they are someone. In the moment, in the intimacy of it, they're nothing. It's an imagination that you're in a house, it's imagination that you're on a continent, it's imagination that you're on a planet, it's imagination that this is good or bad, that there is light or no light. It is all imagination. It is all imagination. And the reason that that's important, so maybe some of you listening was like, how in the hell does that help me? And why does that even matter? The reason that this is important to see is because there is an element of yourself that has been forgotten. There's been such a strong fixation on the dream of you, on dreaming about that you've just come from the previous room, that you're sitting here listening to a talk, that you have friends, family, that you are this or that there's another part of you which has been forgotten. And that's what in these talks we're trying to wake up, although that part of you doesn't need waking up. It already is awake. It cannot be asleep. But it just feels like it's asleep because there's such a focus on the dream of you, on this daydream of you sitting here, you listening to me. That's already being lost in thought. What else is happening? And that's actually, it's not already being lost in thoughts. That's maybe too judgmental. It's already thinking. And it's not that thinking is wrong. It's just that when it's believed, it becomes overactive and it just takes over the whole screen, and the deeper part of you, this other part of you, is forgotten. This stillness, this freedom, this place that doesn't judge, this reset. What is it here right now that is free and not suffering, and not judging, not complaining, not needing or wanting or desiring or not desiring? Where is that? A lot of spirituality and spiritual teachers and groups focus on a lot of the person doing something and the person becoming something. And there's nothing wrong with that. I actually think it's really important to work on your person, and that often precludes this realization. But it's not about you doing something. It's not about you getting to something. It's realizing what is already free right here, right now in this? What is free? What cannot be lost? What never leaves? What is always here? And I can say the words in the positive, but know that these words aren't really it. So I could name it as the big consciousness. So there is this consciousness and this being, this I am, that is here and present. So in every moment, everywhere you go, everything you do, there is always this consciousness, this spaciousness. And this consciousness is not separate from everything. It's not behind the eyes, watching everything. It is everything. So the one consciousness is my voice, is my face, is the wall, is the room, it's the colours, the sounds. It is all things that are happening right here. All things. And it is love. This isn't a dead realization. This is what the Buddha would call the end of suffering. If me and the Buddha are talking about the same thing, I can't guarantee that. But I feel like there's a similarity, and the Buddha spoke very much about the end of suffering. The end of suffering is the remembering of this, which isn't an activity of the brain, it's not an activity of thought. It's a remembering of something beyond thought. So what is here beyond thought? What doesn't come and go? What is beyond story? This is so beautiful. This is all that's ever wanted. So there is a freedom that is beyond you. It doesn't belong to you. It doesn't rely on anything that's happening in your life. So your life could be going well, your life could be going badly, your life could be mediocre. There could be all types of things in the life happening, but this is beyond all of that. It doesn't require anything. And this is the birthright of all things. And it's right here. And this isn't about you doing. So the mind might have ideas, okay, I have to do something to get this. And this isn't about you having particular thought patterns. It's beyond all of that. We can talk about that and we can look at the human level of things, but it's beyond that. There is something experiencing now which isn't in time. It's right here. It's so silent and still. This goes beyond time, dimension, space, thought. And this is, to me, where God resides. And it's experiencing everything. And it needs nothing. Nothing that it needs. Nothing that it wants. So what is it experiencing that isn't wanting? A person wants, it wants to be something, it wants to be an ego, believe it or not, although it doesn't think like that, but it wants to be better than the neighbor, it wants to be more successful, it wants to have money, for example, it wants to have family and kids and a house and sunshine and forever happy. All good things. And then what is it in this experience that isn't wanting, that isn't needing? Can only be beyond the daydream of you. So what is here right now that's beyond you? I know it can be so confusing. The mind is like mind really like looking, and then there's something here which is still an experiencing, a non-conceptual. Sometimes when it's first realized, it's still conceptual, it's got conceptual elements to it. It's not really experiential. There is kind of like personal awareness seeing the big consciousness. But it's still an abstract to the mind, but that's kind of really beautiful realization. It is an awakening in a way. But then there is this deeper seeing, which is like a sinking into this silence and it just being the way it is without any separation from mind. Nice. That is beautiful. So now we can go to questions, if you have any questions about this subject. Shall I just try once again to activate Zoom? But I think I'm going to have to set up a new Zoom. I think there's something faulty with the Zoom already that I did. So I will delete that one and set up a new Zoom meeting. Okay, end all meetings. Delete. Let's see if it goes crazy this time. Okay, so I think this one is not going crazy. That's so funny. Oh, that it went so crazy before. Okay, cool, it's all set up. So I'm just going to re-share this in the link below the video. So copy invitation link. Yeah, and I'll reshare it. I'll just reshare, and I'll reshare it in the Zoom. Sorry about this, everyone. Like it's the problem with technology, eh? Works 1 minute and then has fault. Save. So remove. So I just put the link now in the chat as well, and I pin that to the top. So you can now go into Zoom and ask me a question through Zoom as well. Yeah, or and yeah, you can write questions in YouTube chat, but I love speaking to people as well. So if somebody has a spoken question, then yeah, please go into Zoom and then put your hand up. Cool, there's no one in there with their hand up at the moment. It's yes, please put your hand up if you're in Zoom. So we'll go to YouTube questions. Man, all these different screens. Question, Anastasia. Thank you for your beautiful talks. What is your take on small but frequent awakenings? Is it a sign of gradual detachment from the character and the seeking? So yeah, that's often what happens for a lot of people, is these gradual awakening. Yeah, these gradual, sorry, and people can hear me in Zoom. Yeah, it's these gradual awakenings. So often what happens is through time, there is more and more dropping into what you truly are. And sometimes that's not even recognized. You know, often people are so fixated and focused on bliss and joy. So they're looking for the times when they have bliss and joy and freedom. And that often can be related to having an awakening. Because when you have an awakening, there often can be this big relaxation. So lots of bliss and joy and happiness is created. But what's actually happening beyond the feeling is, it is like a detachment from self. It's like a falling into something else that's really still and silent and free. But it's also not a detachment from the person. Like, it makes everything in the personal world more intense. It's opposite to what you think. So it's like, in a way, you could say, like, really embodying the person. But yeah, but what happens often on this process is this gradual awakening. And when I was having these gradual awakenings, I didn't really recognize what was happening, that there was an emptiness that was happening, that there was nothing experiencing itself as everything. that was like really present and free. I couldn't put that into words, and because it didn't last long enough, I was more focused on the experiences that Lisa was happening, of feeling more intimate with people and more engaged, rather than in the background. It was like really empty, like Lisa wasn't experiencing. I just didn't have the right terminology for it. Yeah. There was this deep emptiness there, that there is nothing in here, there's no centralized point that is experiencing. And it can happen to people throughout their day, that there is a disappearing of that separate self, or that energy which is making it feel like that separate self is experiencing. And then there is this expansion and this emptiness that happens, but it's not being registered by the mind. The mind needs objects and things and experiencing an event to remember. It can't remember emptiness. I know it might think, of course I can remember emptiness, but that's making emptiness into an object again. So it can't really remember it. But there can be at some point like this noticing of this difference, sometimes because there's a big shift. But this difference from being something to not being something. So to being an experiencer to not being an experiencer. So right now, there is nothing experiencing. There is life happening. And in that, a character is appearing, but that character is not experiencing. That character is an experience. That's so full on, right? It's really beautiful. It's really beautiful. Yeah. Okay, let's see if anyone's got any questions in Zoom. Yes, if you put your hand up in Zoom. Nope, there's only 4 people in Zoom. Yeah, if you put your hand up and you'd like to ask a question, you can find the link in the video below. I had to change the link, so if you're in the old one, yeah, it doesn't exist, the old one. Yeah, and just really appreciate having that dialogue with someone, so being able to speak backwards and forwards about what is illusory and what is not. But it's also nice to read questions as well. Some people really like that, the reading. Larry, do you have to lose your fear of death before you awaken? Before you're awakening? No, fear of death is really normal. My character Lisa has a fear of death. She would prefer a death that has less pain. Yeah, that's really normal on the human level. But there is something else that happens normally in awakening, and I think they call it like the dark night of the soul, or I don't know if that's what they call it, where often when you're awakening, what happens is your sense of being you really changes. And it's an energetic experience, and this can produce lots of fear. So as you begin to shift from being the person which is energetically centralized, feeling like it's looking, there can be this expansion, and it can be really sudden, it can be really gradual, so you don't notice it happening. But sometimes when you're having these experiences, as it begins to happen, there can be a lot of fear, because what the body will say is, I'm dying. So the body will produce those thoughts. It's a bit like if you've ever smoked a lot of weed, and if you smoke a lot of weed very quickly, what can happen is your heart rate really goes up and you get a bit disorientated, and the body can have signals that it's dying. So the thought that can come up are, I'm dying. And then if you believe those thoughts, you can go into like a panic, into a really bad state, and you can get into, I remember once when I was younger, this happened, like when I was in my early 20s, somebody gave me like this bong-like thing, and I was just so naive and didn't really realize. I got so stoned, and I'd had a friend, not a close friend, but somebody I went to school with, who died from like a brain seizure. And you know, I was having so many weird sensations. Like another thing that I get if I get too stoned is my body gets twitchy, and there is, like, they explain this medically as to why it happens. Like it's quite normal that happens. And I thought that I was having a brain seizure, so I like went into a full down meltdown. I don't even think I could really speak though, so I was just laying on the floor, and I felt and thought I was going to have a seizure and die. And it's like, so then I went into like full blown panic, and I just believed my thoughts. And it's the same with this. So when this shift is occurring, like your sense of self gets really disorientated, and then the body can even like get like really rapid heartbeat, because the same as like when you're getting high on weed, because it's like a complete shift in the perception of the body. And then the thoughts come up, I'm dying, and then there's nothing wrong with that thought, because in a way it's true, there is a death that's happening. But then if there is a belief in I'm dying, then panic can ensue. So then you go into the story of it, and then like you just go into the hell realms. And what has to happen in that moment, the same as when you're on weed, is there has to be a surrendering into dying. So it's it's like a relaxation, and like also knowing that you're not going to die. Like you cannot die. Like, so this deep knowing. But it's really interesting. I speak to so many people about this and met so many people that have sometimes had these awakenings, you know, without any spiritual knowledge, and they you know, and it starts off like a panic attack. Like it starts off very panicky. Yeah. But having said all this, like I'm never recommending don't get yourself physiologically checked out and make sure you're healthy and everything, because it could be that your body's dying. Like, so I'm not saying ignore bodily symptoms. I'm not a doctor. I always recommend that, but this is just something I'm explaining that can happen in the awakening process, and it happened here many times. I died and have died. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Okay, let's go and Zoom. Has anybody got their hand up? Yeah, we got hands up. Okay. So Eric, you can unmute yourself. So I ask you to unmute yourself. Hello, Eric. Yeah. Ask to unmute yourself. Okay. Okay, cool. We've done it. Hey!
Hey.
How can I help you today or not help you?
First, I want to acknowledge something.
Yeah.
I often get so spaced out when I speak to someone like you.
Oh.
And then a normal conversation can be difficult.
Yeah.
I feel quite grounded today.
Okay. Yeah.
So what I would like to bring up is something that Adyashanti said in his last live talk.
Okay.
So I can't speak to him.
Yeah.
I thought I speak to you.
Okay. I am the second best. That's a joke.
Yes. He said that everybody who has had some kind of opening and has come to him and said it has disappeared. But then when he has like poked them about it or inquired with them, all of them has said that there is still something remaining. It's not like this full-blown thing, but there is like something remaining, and attend there. That
Sorry?
was his instruction.
And what? Sorry?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Just the last sentence. I missed one of the words.
Attend there.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Like whatever is remaining. Attend there.
Attend there, yeah. Sorry, it kept cutting out every time you said attend.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, but it's good apart from that. That was just that one word it cut out.
So if I go to my immediate experience, I consider myself that I've had openings, but I'm definitely not residing where I believe you reside, wherever that are.
Or Adyashanti.
Yeah, or Adyashanti. So there is a lot of space and presence that is almost always here, but there is still, it's almost like the me is more expanded, and there is silence available, and if I feel into myself, I can kind of sink into that silence. That is my experience.
It might feel like you can sink into it, but it's actually in that moment where it feels like you're sinking into it, there is a space opening up, which is just so profound. Like they say when we have a choice to do something, so a choice to come on live and speak to me, that's happened 6 seconds prior to the action of doing it. So it's the same with this. I mean, I'm sure it's a different mechanism, but it feels like you are deciding to become present. But I think that's just your narrative. What's actually happening is there is an opening up happening. And then the narrative is that I'm going to become present. Like I'm putting my attention in the present moment. And I'm not recommending that you stop doing that, because that obviously comes with it at the moment. That's obviously part of it. But the idea that you are in control of it or that you're doing it is another idea, but really beautiful. I recommend to carry on doing that action, but just know that the opening and the closing is happening beyond you. It can't be your doing, because you can't experience an opening. The you character can't experience an opening. The opening that's happening is much deeper than that. It's right here.
When you speak like this, there's such a relaxation.
And it feels like I'm relaxing you on the human level. But it doesn't for me, but that's like the way we would go in sentences. So I'm speaking and it's relaxing you. But actually there is this spaciousness presenting itself. We don't know why, but it's presenting itself. And then we label what is happening. And that's really okay, because that label obviously is necessary for something. So it's necessary for this body to seemingly return to these talks. But ultimately, it's a happening beyond you or me, like beyond any of our concepts or projections onto what's happening. There is this spaciousness here already, and it doesn't require anything to be. It doesn't require you to become present to it. It doesn't require you to do anything to it, because it's here already, free. It's in my voice, it's in the room, it's in everything that's seen. It's in all things that are here now.
There is a quite big expansion, and it's very relaxing, but there is still a center somehow.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
That's how I experience it.
Yeah. That's how the mind thinks it's being.
Now it's a bit hard to speak again.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I go out of my body a bit, like out into space. I become larger.
Yeah, beautiful. So, but notice when you say that there's still a center there, that notice that that is also a mental construction. So there is a center, but really that center that you feel like you have is happening in the immense spaciousness that's free.
I experience that centers as bodily contractions. Like that's how I experience the center. If those contractions weren't there, like they had let go after some meditation retreats, then there is no center. I don't think I had a no center experience, but it was less of a center then. But I can sense, of course, the spaces, the contractions in the body are in the space. That I understand that. It's just that it centralizes around them a little bit.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy speaking to you.
I enjoy speaking with you too, Eric. Yeah, it's nice. We just like go into this big pool of like spaciousness. And can you see me?
Spacious. Yes, spaciousness.
Yeah. It's so yummy. Yeah, there's nothing to do from that place. It doesn't want anything. It's not judging you or needing you to be something. You don't have to work anything out. It's just here.
I did such a wonderful breathing meditation this morning, like a dynamic breathing from Osho. And it was called Who Am I? It was one of Osho's students. And in the end, they were saying like, everything is arising within me. How, and like the world is arising within me, the body is arising within me. And I could really sense it. Like, what would you say about that teaching, that everything is arising within me?
Yeah, beautiful. And if that works, like if that like touches something, then that's really beautiful. The only pitfall for that is that all the narcissists will believe that the me is a person. So when it says like it all arises in me, all the narcissists will be like, oh yes, it all arises in me, and they'll personify me as a person. But I'm pretty sure that what the Osho teaching was trying to say was me as in that which is beyond the character. Like your essence, like that most intimate sense of being and that empty looking, which is what we all most deeply feel like we are, but we just get lost in the conceptual. But then, and not even just narcissists, but the more narcissistic side of the person as well will want to put that to a personal thing and be like, I am God, I am Jesus, like me as a person, as a character, that's somebody that's lived through time. But what we're talking about when we say me, and when Osho says me, and I'm pretty sure it's the same, is that which cannot be seen but is seeing, that which is experiencing and the experienced. It's not a subject that's experiencing something. It's so deep and beautiful.
That translucent space is expanding even more when you speak. And that's what I said, what I think is me. I don't think it's me, Eric, that is arising. It's this translucent like space where distances disappear.
Yeah, and you disappear, and like there is no
that's me.
Yeah, in that
in
there
this
is
context.
Yeah, there is no you. There is simply what is happening.
And Julie's, I could just sit there and merge with this and talk to you forever, but let's let some other people ask questions.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Lovely to speak with you.
Lovely, thank you.
Where is Zoom? I have to find Zoom. Michelle, I go to you afterwards because we spoke last week, so I'll go to Marika this time. But how beautiful. It's like last week it was all men asking questions, and this week lots of women. Yeah, nice. Okay. So, Marika, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello. Am I saying your name correctly, Marika?
Marika.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's Dutch.
Yeah. Yeah, I have heard, well, I've got friends called Marika as well, but I never like to assume that I'm reading it correctly.
Thank you for that. That's lovely. Oh, it's so nice to speak with you.
Yeah, lovely to speak with you too.
Yeah, I have a question. I think I'm getting emotional. I think it would help to get a little clarity.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Okay. I had a Kundalini awakening 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Since then, I've had awakenings, and that's been deepening and bringing up a lot of stuff and clearing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty rough at times and also extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
And I haven't been in a relationship for 8 years, and right now I have a new boyfriend.
So you haven't been in a relationship for 8 years?
No, I didn't feel the need at first at all, because I was just so in love with myself and with what I had experienced as the oneness, and and later I gradually was longing for company, for a partner, and but I knew that I would want one who would be suitable also on a spiritual level to a certain degree. I don't know, but so I met someone, and we are together now for 3 months, so it's quite young.
Yeah.
But
I just want to stop you before you carry on speaking, just to check with you that you're okay to share. Like, I don't want you to share and then feel traumatized by it, or I don't want you to share and then realize afterwards that you're talking about your new partner online and then regret it. Just just being conscious that there is an audience and this is being recorded. I just say this just to make sure that that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the moment it started, there was just so much love and recognition on a deep level, and there were also deep pain. There was also deep pain coming up. And I realized from the beginning that we have, I think it is a codependent dynamic. So I was very aware of it. I thought I was very aware of it. And try to stay out of it as much as I could, and also mention it to him. And it was really, really beautiful and so nice together. And now I'm a bit more aware of what I will share and what I won't, but I'll just share what I think is necessary. A couple of weeks back, we started triggering each other a lot.
We started to what? Sorry?
Triggering each other.
Right.
Yeah, and since then, most of the times that we met, something happened that triggered one of us, and then the other responds also in such a way, in a very triggered state. And I feel that the pain body is very active then. Sometimes I can be aware of what's happening and stay in the more zoomed out space. Now it has happened so much that we both decided to be apart for a while. And I think that's very healthy, but it's so very painful. And also confusing, because I don't know anymore what is healthy love and what is from this lack, coming from this lack of parental care or whatever.
Yeah, I think this is something that's most probably on a lot of people's minds, like how you are in relationship with this awakening and with this realization, like how to handle relationships. Ramesh Balsekar, one of my teachers, used to say, you know, the problem comes from relationships. But we're always in relationship with things. We're in relationship with the trees, with the plant, with the environment, with the house. But the people, it's a lot more intense because they speak back. They're a lot more interactive, so it feels a lot more intense. But it's a really fascinating thing to explore. And for me, and I think for other teachers as well, will quite happily admit that they also get triggered in relationship, that doesn't necessarily leave. And for me, the way that I see relationships is, like how to deal with the relationships, is understanding the psychology of yourself and the other and striving to improve your psychology. And that's like a lifelong endeavor. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. There's so much on the internet now about learning about your psychology. One book that I would recommend is something called Attached. I forget who it's by, but it's on my website under the reference page. It's not by me. I'm not promoting it for my own benefit. It's just a really beautiful book about attachment styles. I don't know if you've ever read or listened to this, but for some of us, like I had problems relating to people because of early childhood issues. And so for some of us, relationships are a struggle because we weren't taught the correct way in how to relate. And that's actually different from non-duality, because you can have great awakening and great freedom and not be attached to the personality, but yet you still can't navigate communication very well because you've not learned how to communicate properly and associate blame properly, which is also really difficult in relationship to non-duality, because like Roger, my teacher, would say there is no blame, which is true. Like there is no blame which is associated to hate, but in relationship it's important to say this is your fault or this is my fault, or take responsibility. And sometimes when you've had difficulty in childhood, you find that a struggle, and so you get into this dynamic where you're not sure what's going on, or you get very lost in dynamics, like you don't really understand, so you ignore it, or you don't deal with it, or you over deal with it. And so my advice would be to go and seek one-to-one counsel over it. Like I still now to this day, if I'm having relationship issue with anyone, with my partner, with my parents, or family members, I will still go and seek one-to-one counsel, because I know that it's great to have an outside perspective, you know, from someone that you trust, whether that be a friend, whether that be someone you pay, but somebody that's got a good grip on relationships and how to communicate well and how to have healthy dynamics. And, you know, it's just so amazing when you meet somebody, when you meet a partner that or you meet, or you come together in a relationship where you're both prepared to hold each other's stuff and grow from it on the human level. But don't expect non-duality to sort this out. I used to be of the perspective that if I had this realization, it would sort out relationships. It does to an extent. I think it makes relationships easier, but it can also exacerbate stuff. You know, I became very, very passive after the awakening, and that's not good in relationships. Like, that also creates problems in relationships, being too passive. And because there was after that also created problems in relationships. Like, relationships are funky chicken dances, you know. If you have an awakening and you don't have very strong wants, and then you've got a partner that has very strong wants, then easily what can happen is that their wants are going to dominate yours, which also isn't healthy. Then there can be, like you say, triggering, where you both become very reactive or something, where you're trying to establish boundaries. You know, you've learned that you didn't have strong enough boundaries, so then you over-establish boundaries. So there's all these different things that can happen. So my advice to anyone out there is seek outside counsel, you know, read books about psychology, and it's very much psychology that you want to investigate. There's another channel on my reference page called Psychologist in Seattle, which is a YouTube channel which looks at, it's quite funny actually, but it's also really sweet and really informative and amazing. It looks at reality TV shows and relationships that people have on reality TV shows to talk about healthy relating. So he's a couples therapist, and it's really cool to watch people relating, and then he gives commentary about how you could relate in a more healthy way, and what is unhealthy and what isn't, and what would be a better outcome. It's really interesting. You know, what is avoidance, what isn't avoidance. So there's all these different tools.
Yeah.
But what the difference is in awakening, so after this realization's happened, is that there isn't seeking for freedom in that. Your partner is not going to give you freedom. Your partner is going to be great joy, is going to be like beautiful things on the human level. So there's lots of beautiful things, but there's also difficult things in relating as well. But it's not your freedom. Your freedom is always the emptiness of what is. It's always the consciousness which is experiencing now. And that doesn't mean not being triggered by each other, but it can loosen the triggers, it can loosen the intensity, because them behaving in a certain way or empathizing with you in a certain way isn't your freedom. But it also doesn't mean accepting things that aren't appropriate from another person.
Yeah, I really recognize what you said about having no wants. And he has a lot of wants. And I surrender to it and go with it. And now I realize that that's going far too much out of my center. And when I have boundaries, it's very difficult for him.
Yeah.
So and I know a lot.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Sorry?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I know a lot about attachment, and but living it, then you still get confused.
Yeah.
You know?
That's why it's good to have outside counsel that you can speak to regularly about it, because it's so say if they have strong wants and you don't, just be conscious that they will have picked somebody that doesn't have strong wants, more than likely. I know that seems like an unimaginable thing, that they could be that intelligent to do that, but they will have checked you out on the first date, the first time they ever spoke to you, to see what they could get away with or what they couldn't. So that is going to be something that will never go away in them, and they're not going to like, unless they decide to expand and grow from that and see that dynamic, and they're not going to like it if you do set boundaries. And so then it's, coming back to what you want in the end in relating. Is that acceptable? Well, that's me giving a really simplistic diagnosis of that. But that's generally my experience of it, is that people will seek out, if they've got strong wants, they'll seek out somebody with loose wants. And and that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's it's just seeing what is acceptable for you and what isn't, and then how you communicate that with them and navigate that with them.
Yeah, it's very good to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And he also, it's confusing because he says he wants to sit with me and be in silence and sink into the non-duality. That's very much his longing also. So it's a bit twofold, but it's not. I cannot be his
mother.
Yeah, his mother. Yeah. So I already have counseling, but it's more also non-dual therapy. And I think what you're saying is also maybe look for a specific, more from attachment style.
Yeah. Because maybe in non-dual therapy, they're not so interested in going into this with you, but go more into attachment styles when it comes to relating. Yeah.
I was thinking a bit in that direction as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure, Marika. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open. It's beautiful speaking with you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so let's go to Michelle. You can unmute yourself, Michelle. I think it's maybe just Michelle.
Yeah,
it's just Michelle. Sorry. We spoke last week.
Sounds like what my mom would say.
Michelle. And you're like, uh-oh.
I had a question about diet.
Okay.
And I think for a while throughout just this process, I've wondered about, I ate raw vegan for 16 years.
Wow,
and
that's quite commitment.
It started mainly just because I always had sensitivities to food, and it seemed like when I took out the things that didn't bother me, eventually it just sort of practically led to that way of eating.
Yeah.
That I felt the best that way. There were a lot of things, even like depression throughout life, that really lightened up when I changed that. There's also definitely the ethical side, that does matter to me, and even as a young person I was a vegetarian and stuff. But I do wonder now, there are times when I wonder, because of the thing that will happen if I don't stay on that sort of strict type of diet, there's a lot of guilt that arises, and there's stress, and I don't even know if it's all anymore around the sensitivities, or if this is sort of a way a me is holding to an identity. It's hard to tell. I'll sort of put a wrench in it, and I will just eat other things to sort of just let that come up and see, what occurs with that. And then sometimes it's even me looking to see, what is that? What it still feels like a me energy, It's all of it kind of feels it could be coming from that place, or trying to figure something out that's actually just a biological preference. It's not really anything to, it's this seems to work, and so you keep coming back to it, and it's just what it is. But I don't know, there's a little bit of a suspicion there, just because of what will happen if that stuff isn't continually done. Like there are thoughts of gaining weight, there are thoughts of like feeling bad or like my body not working as well, and which might not actually be occurring when I'm eating the other stuff, but almost like that has become a very safe way to eat in a lot of situations. So I'm just trying to kind of like out it and see where it might be coming from, or if it's not even a thing and I'm just making it a thing, you know, it's just sort of like a natural preference of this particular body and whatever.
Yeah, I have no advice on the level of like what you should eat or shouldn't eat and being healthy and not being healthy. In the end, like what you really long for is this moment. And, you know, if you were homeless and ate out of the bins and ate really unhealthy processed food, that doesn't preclude freedom. Like, so there can be freedom in junk food, in... Yeah, I'm not sure about alcohol, but I know that the sadhus in the north of India, some of them smoke continuously, like weed all the time. So it's not about putting stuff in the body. But it can't be about putting stuff in the body, because all of that appears in who you are. So I understand what you mean, wanting to get to the bottom of it. So wanting to understand where it comes from. You know, if it comes from meing energy or not, because most probably your mind thinks, then I can let something go or not think about it so much. But I don't think that that's the answer. I think that deciding what's right or what's wrong won't stop you thinking about it. It's like a habit to stay in these stories, any stories. And the freedom is in what you are. Always in what you are. In every moment. So in those moments when your mind is saying, should I be a vegan or not a vegan? There is freedom happening. In what you like or in what you don't like, there is freedom happening. In the guilt of eating the wrong food or the bad food or the unethical food. Like, you don't have to be a vegan to get to this. You could be a full-fledged meat eater. I'm unsure about the alcohol one, because the alcohol, it feels like that, like I see weed as different from alcohol for some reason. But like the alcohol feels like there can be freedom in alcohol, but it's like, why would the person be doing, you know, but that's a different subject, we don't need to go in there. But it's, you can be a meat eater, you know, you can, there's no, like in the end, the plants are alive, and in the end, when you take the plants from the ground, you're killing thousands and thousands of mice and insects. There's, you know, there's all types of...
Sure, I can see all the contradictions with that stuff. It really is more the, like, it's not even that I think meat eaters are bad in any way or anything. It really is just more of like the sort of personal aspect to like what that is, and also how it feels like it does affect like the spontaneity of what it, you know, like, because it's kind of dragging in something that I've done for a very long time, so it feels like it's somehow connected still to some sort of identity or
and it's something that keeps the mind thinking about itself, like which diet is right for me. And you can go in there and you can find the attachments to it, but what else is happening? So you can find the attachments, like what are you attached to, or what is it you're rejecting, or what is you're fearing? And that's an interesting exercise to do, but that's still an exercise for the person. But I'm not dismissing it and saying don't do that, but I'm just saying that also there is something happening in that that's free. So the mind is focusing on itself, focusing on fixing itself, focusing on getting to its deeper meaning, which is okay. Like that can really help release energies, but it's never going to end. Anything in the mind is never going to end. So what is it in every moment that's always ending? And this is so simple, it can be a bit unbearable for that mind that wants to work something out, or that mind that wants to release itself. So there is this endless invitation to freedom that's not in the mind, that's deeply relaxing and right here, that's experiencing, but not separate from that which is being experienced. It's not moving, it's not rejecting, it's not grabbing, it's not judging, it's not needing you to work anything out. It's just here, free. Right here.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not like there needs to be even an ignoring of those thoughts, just like a not grabbing.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. It's just a slight shift in perspective, or yeah, that's a hard way to put it, but it's like a slight shift in your perception. Like it's like you say, it's not ignoring them, because that would be bypassing. And like that's a nice way to be it, not grabbing them, that there they are, but there's something else happening here, and that's all you ever long for. And the other stuff is, it's going to make your personality better or your health better, but it's not the important element. There could be a drought, and there could be all types of things that create different eating. Maybe not in America, but there could be shortage of food, so food is great for the healthy body, but it's not freedom. Nothing in this world will ever free you. It's so deeply relaxing, and it really isn't about ignoring or bypassing. It's something else is here that embraces the discomfort, the thoughts around it, the going backwards and forwards, should I, shouldn't I, the guilt. It's an absolute acceptance of all of that.
Yeah, the not grabbing versus the bypassing can be tricky at times, because it's like I can feel the energy of, oh, that's one of those kind of thoughts. And so there is a feeling to just sort of ignore it coming around the bend, kind of like, oh, I know the feeling of that. And then in those moments, it's like, is that bypassing a little bit, or is it just like discerning, like the style of that thought, and just, we know that one, let's just ignore it,
Yeah.
So there's sometimes a little trickiness around that subtlety there of
and
which one is happening.
And notice that is the mind. So the mind is like having thoughts about that, and that isn't healthy or unhealthy. It's maybe more beneficial than just being lost in it. And then what's that appearing in? So that's happening, and then there is just a slight shift in perspective, that it's appearing in a spaciousness that's not grabbing or rejecting either. So it's not exactly talking to the thoughts, it's not calming the thoughts, it's noticing. Maybe the mind notices that there is these thoughts happening, but then there's something deeper. So it's like a slight change in perspective that isn't thinking. That isn't an abstraction of the mind, but it's total inclusion of every thought that arises and every feeling.
Yeah, it's so funny, because that can even sometimes be a subtle thought of the looking.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, yeah, but that's being seen, so it's just like yeah, it can be a little bit of a fun house.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah, the mind can separate itself in so many different ways.
like be a witness of that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm seeing that, but that's still a thought.
Yeah.
You know, like, so
Yeah, but I mean, that's maybe like more helpful than other thoughts in terms of like settling the person down. But what we're talking about is no abstraction of the mind.
yeah.
So there is something else happening here that doesn't require a thought, that doesn't require a perspective. It's just experience.
And it already happens. That's the thing. It already happens, and then the thought happens right after. Oh, I just saw that one. Let me look at that one.
Yeah.
But it was already seen.
Yeah.
So now there's just like those two that seem to bounce back and forth. Like, oh, well, it's actually the awareness sees it a second later, or like cognitively sees it a second later. It's like, no, it saw it at that time. But now you're adding another witnesser or something.
Yeah. It's so cheeky.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, it's not. Like, even calling it cheeky is just judging it too much. It's like there is the watching that's happening, and then in that there is play happening. Just like there is a plant happening, the room happening, there is these thoughts that are discussing freedom. And all of it's appearing in the freedom that's already conscious. Like the consciousness is prior to any thought that arises. Anything that's being experienced cannot be it. It's like so instantaneous. It doesn't need anything. It's like a shift in perspective from being those thoughts to experiencing this, but not from a perspective. Yeah.
Just from an already. Really.
Yeah, and already. That's a really nice way to put it. And it seems like there needs to be a reminding of this for a while, you know? There needs to be hearing this again and again and again and again, like...
Because it really is obvious. Every time you bring it back to that, it's like, oh, I was in thought, you know, like, but because the thoughts now become around freedom, it sort of doesn't have the same kind of feel as previous kinds of thoughts. They're lighter, so it's like, no, I'm still in that position, but no, I actually got caught again. Yeah. And just like hearing someone say, but that's, you know, it's still, what is that happening in? And it's like, shit, it's true, I was out of it. Yeah, so there does need to be a reminding.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, lovely to speak.
You too.
Bye. Hey Larissa, we'll come to you next, but I'm just going to visit the bathroom. One moment. I am back. Okay, so Marissa, you can unmute yourself. Hey. Hello.
Oh.
Hi, Larissa.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
No, I can't hear you.
You can't? I think it's you, not me, because other people have been able to hear me. Oh, but you can't hear me.
No, I can't hear anything.
Hello, Larissa? Okay, so we go on to Chris. I'm sorry, Larissa, you can't hear me, but I think it's you, not me, because I've been speaking to other people, so I'm just going to move on. Hey, Chris. Hello.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
Can I turn my video on?
No, we'll just leave that off because it's a bit much internet data for me. YouTube is already complaining that I've not got enough data.
Okay. Well, hello.
Hello, how can I help you or not help you today?
I think I need wisdom,
Sorry?
and so I would like some of your wisdom in a relationship question.
Okay.
Okay. So I've been married for 27 years
Oh, wow.
and still married.
Yeah, nice.
And I recently would say I very recently have had a very clear awakening, wake up experience in terms of having a relationship with my being, my realizing that life is about being with myself and being aware of my thoughts and not being my thoughts. And I just kind of started this relationship of me that's what the waking up experience is, I guess, is that I am aware of everything else in my life. I used to believe everything was just me. My thoughts were me. So it's kind of getting out of that mental matrix.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. But it's been about 3 or 4 years of that. But now my wife, who is very much in her own matrix, but really suffering, is I really want her to experience the same thing.
Mm.
And so I'm trying to explain to her how it is that we're not our thoughts and we live in this idea world that we don't need to live in. It's us looking at the world and being aware of the thoughts. And so it's frustrating because I love her and I want her to not suffer. And so what can I do? I feel like I'm obligated. I feel like I want her to wake up. And so it's hard to not press it and like want to talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But she's not there. And so what would you suggest, or how have you found it helpful?
So I think this is just such a beautiful question. Like, I think a lot of people can relate to this, is that there is a waking up and there is a freedom that begins to transpire. And then there is a desire to pass that on to loved ones. Like, so you love your wife and you want her to have freedom, have space from that suffering. But you have to ask yourself, because you can only bring it back to yourself on the character level in a way. Who is the one that wants your wife, to wake up? And we won't go into detail. If like I was working with you one-on-one, I would ask you to go into the feelings of that and, how you feel and what sort of thoughts come up around that. Like I suspect that there is a part of a construct which can be seeking or not seeking, that's really irrelevant, like whether it's identification or not, but there's a construct that's arising in you that wants the other to be free. And then the question would be, is who is the one that you see? Who is the other that you're seeing that you want to be free? And why, who is the you that wants the other to be free? And the feelings that are around that in you. Like it's a beautiful aspiration, and it's a loving aspiration to want others to be free. But it also can be a very mental thing as well. So do you have any answers, like who is the one that wants them to be free? I'm not sure if I lost you there.
No, I'm thinking about that. I'm letting that sink in.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess here's my thought that just came to my head is, if I did let go of that on the human level, if I let that seeking person who wants her to be free go, and saw it as a not her or a separate seeking person, and then she still didn't wake up, I think that's what I'm afraid of. Is letting go of my ability to wake her up, and then it's still not happening.
And what are you afraid of?
That hurt.
What are you afraid of in that?
I guess if I believe the best about everything, I'm afraid that she wouldn't experience the joy and the freedom of being free like we are experiencing. And so I'm not experiencing it. There's a blockage in me, I think, which is kind of trying to be her savior. Maybe that's my own personal growth. And if I could be free from that would be wonderful too.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe I'm not trusting the universe or something enough it's not the same that to say, well, she's already awake and she's already conscious, and it's good enough that her existence is experiencing her own existence. She got to be a human on Earth, but she's suffering, and so I guess trusting the universe to walk her through her suffering enough to then give her the opportunity to see that she's not who she thinks she is. She's consciousness.
I would suggest
and then to step out of from.
Yeah, I would suggest that that it's most probably a lot deeper than that. In the sense of in your mental constructs. So the idea of I've forgotten that word now. Empathy or autonomy. Is autonomy, when you want to help others? I've forgotten. No, that's not autonomy. I've forgotten that word now. When you want to help others, but that is a beautiful idea, but it is an idea. And I think that that can be a very balanced dynamic. And when you have a shift and you have awakening, there is this end of hatred for people. So you just wish people well. So you wish them the end of suffering. Like that's, but then it can become too conceptual, and it can become a part of your past dynamic. So if we looked into the timeline, so if we're going to talk about people, there has been billions and billions of humans that have lived a life in complete suffering and died in complete suffering. So why is it that you personally want this one person to not have that experience? Because I would suggest that the majority of people have lived and died in suffering. In the moment of death, suffering ends, but in their apparent life, there has been suffering. So why is it that you particularly want this person not to experience that? So yes, I can recognize that the feeling on the person tends to be wishing people well. You don't have this passive aggression or this dislike or this hatred for people anymore. So there's just this openness to wanting people to do well and thrive. Like that's the natural way of being on the human level, because we're a communal animal. We have this, I've forgotten that word, it's not empathy, but we have this energy to want others to thrive, and it's very loving and it's very beautiful. But then it can become a conceptual thing where it's this story of you seeing your wife and not wanting her to live a life, and the effects that that has on you. And it becomes in your story. Because in this moment, where is your wife? So there can be this lovingness and this openness to her in the moment, but right now she doesn't exist. When she's in front of you, she also doesn't really exist. And this isn't a coldness, this isn't talking about like lack of empathy, this is really wisdom, like what this part to it. So my suggestion to you would be to explore your psychology and look at why that person needs the wife to be free when there has been billions of people on this planet that haven't been free. So what is the special connection there? And I would explore childhood. Like, was this a role that you had played? Was this a role that you played in previous lives to save the other? Because in the end, it's not your job. That's really not your job. Life can speak through you to other people, but it doesn't sound like it is in this case. It sounds like you, as a character, has an agenda to wake your wife because of an emotion, because you can't take watching them suffer. And that sounds like a rational idea, but it is kind of like it's in a mental concept. Like true love is loving them as they are in this moment, and then there can be a speaking through you, which comes from that true love, but it's not about fixing them. It's not about them ending their suffering. It isn't from a discomfort in you. It's from an expansion. So who is the one that wants the wife to be free? And why is it focused on the wife? Because it's more than likely a story that's playing in you about your discomfort with seeing suffering in humans, which most probably be related to childhood or a previous life. That's seemingly something that arises a lot in the human world, is the suffering of other people. What is it? What is the role that you've played to your wife, to the other people? And this connection to, you cannot be happy and free until she is. That isn't true. It's horrible. It's really sad to watch people suffer. It is, and there can be such great depth to some people's suffering. But it doesn't take from what is. It doesn't take from the freedom of who you truly are in every moment. So
Wow.
Like who is it that wants that? Like, so you can be in front of your wife and she can be in deep suffering, and there can be a deep knowing of who you truly are, which is free. And then if life decides to use you as a vessel to speak to her, then let that happen. But it doesn't come from an emotion. It doesn't come from a wanting to reject her suffering in any way.
Wow. Wow.
It's painful, very, very painful. You know, you work on yourself, you free so much of yourself, and then you realize that there's all these people around you that aren't free, but they are aspects of yourself in a way.
So fixing her is really a way of fixing myself, or relieving my own suffering.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how would you suggest then that I would do that in her my own personal times alone, or seeing how to see her when I'm with her or not with her?
Yeah. So it's just then going to presence, but it's not you going to presence. There's a recognition of what's happening in the moment there. So if you're standing in front of her and she's deeply suffering and there is pain, then noticing that pain, and if there's rejection, noticing that rejection. If there is a wanting to speak to her to try to fix it, noticing that. So it's like a real presence to what's happening on the human. So on the human level, it's becoming very present. And simultaneously, so when there's not getting involved in helping her and doing all these things, recognizing also, which it sounds like it's been happening over the years, the freedom that is already here. That there is this deep freedom here already, beyond you. That's so still and perfect and rejecting nothing. And sinking more into that. And when there is a more genuine, it will come from that. It will feel like it's coming from the emptiness, even though that sounds very dualistic. It won't be coming from the person that wants to fix her. I can have these dynamics. I call them old seeking patterns coming up sometimes with people, where I'm with close relations and I'm seeing them suffer, and then there is a dynamic in me, a rescuer character that comes up, wanting to rescue them, and it doesn't
It's so
work.
funny because it doesn't seem like a rescuer character should be wrong. The universe should be making rescuers.
No, but it is.
But even the rescuer that's made in its own image is not. Not true.
Yeah, it is not true. It doesn't, and that's where it's very cunning, because the rescuer does seem like it's like the altruistic. That's the word. It's like the altruistic. It's like the hero of the story, the rescuer. But there's this really amazing therapy. I've forgotten what it's called, and I've forgotten the inventor of the therapy. But it's this triangle. They draw this triangle, and on the triangle you have the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. And you learn in this therapy how the rescuer supports the persecutor and the victim. And it's just really amazing to learn that. And that the rescuer isn't actually helping, the rescuer is supporting the other two dynamics. And when you see that, especially as a very empathetic person, you really understand that it's a game of the mind. You're upholding. So the persecutor and the victim will always look for a rescuer to keep and maintain their game. If you can't have these two, so your wife at the moment, the persecutor is maybe God, the persecutor is life because your wife is suffering, the persecutor is mind. So then your wife is a victim to that. But then she needs a rescuer to also play that game. She needs somebody that tries to help her out of that. That's the way our films and stories and TV, that's the stories that we're always telling ourselves. And the rescuer is the hero role, the rescuer is the great role. And this therapeutic process is about noticing these games and stepping away from these games. Like your wife has to find her own freedom. You will never be able to rescue her. It will never work. You'll just maintain her staying in victim, and you'll maintain her persecutor. I wish I could remember this therapeutic. Maybe somebody knows and they can comment the name of the person that invented this therapeutic philosophy. It's so interesting to read about. So it's just noticing this drive in you, this drive in her, this drive that appears, and let speaking come from a different place that's not coming from any perspective, and let it only come from that place. But I too can fall into a rescuer dynamic. You put somebody, you know, that's really in dire straits in front of me, and I can feel that, like, okay, I'm getting activated, here come, here, let me get my cape on, it wants to do something. So I know that, like, I have this dynamic too, but I also know that it just never works. You know, a friend used to say to me, you save somebody's life and you owe them your life. And that's just such a profound saying. So, and that took me a long time to really understand that. You save someone's life and you owe them your life. But that's like going more into psychology. So, but the reason that I'm bringing that up, the psychological stuff, is because what's happening is you're believing that that's got some truth in it. Who is the person that wants to rescue? And what is that appearing in? Like, who are you? And going back to that spacious, expanded freedom that you are, and noticing that it's an abstraction of the mind, and that's okay, but it's not what you're really looking for. What you're really looking for is this moment, and that's what your wife is really looking for too. And you can't find it in the world of the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim.
So it's like those are characters or personas in this world, in this dream.
Yeah.
A persecutor, a victim, and a savior, and none of them really need to exist at all.
Yeah. It's, I mean, that's going to happen when we name it, but so it's not that because, like, say if we all go into war or something, there is going to be characters that will want to help others. So that's going to appear because that will be our natural instinct to help others, but it's actually not identifying with those roles. So it's like, that is not who you are. Who you are is this freedom, and those roles aren't going to free you. And also then looking into, on the more human level, and this is the psychological level, why those roles appear and if they're actually healthy. It's slightly different when it's more practical, you know, and there's a war zone, but when you're in relationship, like are they healthy? Who is the one that wants to rescue? Who are you? And who is the wife that wants to be saved? And is that freedom?
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, how much do I owe you?
Nothing. The greatest gift anyone could ever give.
Okay, I'm going to pay it forward then. This is going to work for me. Thank you. And
yeah, that's
for
a pleasure. And you can rewatch this, and hopefully somebody can comment in below, because I think it would be helpful for you to really understand this this pyramid. So if you can comment in the box below, not in the chat, but in the box below after the video stopped, who is it that invented that pyramid of the rescuer, the perpetrator, and the victim? Because just reading a very brief synopsis of it, I think will really help you understand how they support each other and pulling out and extracting from that great game. And that all you need to give your wife, all you need to give anyone, the greatest love that you can give is nothing, which is what you are right here, right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Beautiful to speak with you. Nice. Okay, so that is all for today. We just do some 5 minutes of silent sitting because the beginning of the video got all messed up because I didn't have the volume on. I'm just going to repeat the advertisements now. So there is a live Zoom talk the first Sunday of the month, and it's a small group, it's not recorded, and so you can ask questions privately in that. You can find that on my website under private Zoom calls. And if you want to know if I'm going live on Sunday, subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll see it on my page, the next live stream. So on my page, there's currently the one for next Sunday, I believe. I stream most Sundays at 4:30 French time, but I can't guarantee that, so always check to make sure that there's the live stream coming up and get notifications. And if you like and appreciate this video, then like it to support my channel. Okay, now after the advertisements, we do some silent sitting. Just 5 minutes. Yeah, thank you, everybody. I really wish you everything. Not one thing or two things or three things, but every goddamn